Ronald Lee Haskell Jr., age 33, was married to Melanie Haskell. The couple married in 2002, and had 4 children together. Melanie took care of their 4 small children while Haskell worked in a cheese factory, and also driving as a contractor for FedEx. Haskell grew up in a religious family from the LDS Church. To the outside, Haskell appeared to be the perfect husband and father. However, things began to unravel when Melanie called the police to report her husband for abuse. Back in 2008, he was arrested for simple assault and domestic violence in the presence of a child. He had punched his wife and pulled her hair in front of their children. He started dragging her by her hair and repeatedly punching her in the face. She escaped to the children's room, but he followed and punched her in front of their children. Haskell pled guilty to assault and not guilty to domestic violence charges. Both charges were dismissed the following year. Melanie remained with Haskell, but the abuse only got worse. In 2013, Melanie decided she had enough of her husband's continuous mental and physical abuse. She decided to leave. A few weeks later, Melanie filed for divorce, and had police serve Haskell with a protective order. The order was dismissed a few months later with conditions. He was allowed supervised visits with his children until his therapist could determine he was no longer a threat. With the help of her sister Katie and a brother, she moved from Utah to Texas to be with relatives. In February of 2013, Ronald and Melanie's divorce was finalized. Haskell was ordered to pay $800 a month in child support, and to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. When he lost his job, he decided to move to California to live with his parents. While at his mother's house, he showed signs of deep depression and anger. He would go into his room for days at a time without food. In November, Haskell attacked his own mother, and when his sister intervened, he punched her. Then threw her to the ground, leaving bruises. Both his mother and sister petitioned the courts for protection orders against Haskell. In early July, Haskell's mother again accused her son of domestic violence in her home in San Marcos, California. He became enraged when he discovered his mother was talking to his ex-wife. He duct taped his mother to a chair for several hours. He repeatedly screamed in her face. He then choked her until she went unconscious. He told his mother he would kill her, and any police officer who stood in his way. Haskell left the home before his mother reported the abuse. The authorities were searching for Haskell. Melanie's sister, Katie, age 34, and her husband Stephen, age 39, had helped Melanie separate away from Ronald. The Stay family moved to Houston in 2012 after living in California. Stephen and Katie had 5 children, 15-year-old Cassidy, 13-year-old Brian, 9-year-old Emily, 7-year-old Rebecca, and 4-year-old Zach. Cassidy attended Klein Collins High School. Brian attended Schindwolf Intermediate School in Harris County. He loved to play on his tablet. Emily attended Lem Elementary School in Enchanted Oaks. She absolutely loved Hello Kitty. Rebecca also attended Lem Elementary School. She loved playing on her Wii. Her nickname on games was Coconut. Zach loved everything about the sea, especially sea life. The Stay family lived at 711 Leaflet Lane, located in the Enchanted Oaks subdivision just outside of Spring, Texas. Stephen ran a very successful realty company in Spring, Texas. Katie owned her own origami online jewelry company. On July 9 in 2014, Haskell knocked on the door of the Stay residence wearing a FedEx uniform. He was holding a duct tape white pillow as a silencer, and a 9mm handgun. 15-year-old Cassidy answered the door. She immediately recognized the man wearing a FedEx uniform was her Uncle Ron. She told her uncle that her parents were not home. Haskell left, but came back a few minutes later, and forced his way into the home by breaking the door. He held Cassidy and her siblings hostage at gunpoint, while he waited for her parents to return home from running errands. Cassidy tried to appeal to her uncle, asking him to please not hurt them, but he was calm and unaffected. He tied their hands and waited. When her parents arrived home, he herded them all into one room, and began tying Stephen and Katie's hands. When nobody would tell him where his ex-wife was at, he became angry. He forced each family member face down, then he began executing the children first by shooting them in the head. Katie fought with Haskell, and tried to grab the gun away to protect her children, but he was too strong. He shot her in the face. Cassidy was shot in the head. She was conscious but played dead to avoid being shot again. After Cassidy was sure her uncle was gone, she managed to gain enough strength to get up and call 911 for help. She was able to identify Haskell and advised them he was on his way to her grandparents' home to kill them too. When police and first responders arrived, they checked each victim's pulse. They found 2 of the children still showed signs of life. 7-year-old Rebecca and 15-year-old Cassidy were airlifted to the nearest hospital. Police immediately began searching for Haskell. When he fled the Stay family home, he stole the family's car. Authorities were able to track him down to just outside another family member's home, where he spotted police and fled. Police threw out spikes to try to stop the alleged killer. One of the car's rear tires received damage, but it didn't stop him. The chase ensued for over 20 minutes when he was finally cornered in a nearby cul-de-sac. Nearby homes were evacuated to avoid any further tragedies. Haskell held a gun to his head and spoke to police through his cell phone. Officers used armored vehicles to ram the front and rear of his vehicle, preventing him from escaping. After 3 intense hours, he finally surrendered. He got out of the car and dropped to his knees. He was immediately taken into custody. When investigators searched his car, they found the murder weapon. He was taken into custody and charged with multiple counts of murder, and 1 count of attempted murder. Rebecca died shortly after arriving at the hospital. Cassidy was in critical condition but expected to survive. Neighbors spoke to reporters after the tragedy.
Stay family was I like to refer to them as an anchor family. They're that family in the neighborhood where all the kids go to their house to play. Our family has experienced a great loss of this, because there's not a day that will go by where we won't somehow miss them, some experience where we'll miss them. Cassidy's got a tough road ahead of her, but at the same time, she has a very strong support group with her family, with her church, and her faith will sustain her. As we've seen so far, she's been amazing so far. She's been in, I don't know that I could hold up as well as she has.
Stephen was very, patient and quiet and happy, smiling all the time, and just really mellow, kind of a peacemaker kind of guy. And Katie was a lot more talkative. She was also happy, also very caring and loving, a little bit sarcastic, which I think a lot of people appreciated, because, it kind of lightens the mood. She was a great motivator. She was a great cheerleader. She loved to serve, as did Stephen. I mean, they were always doing something for somebody else.
Stated when we found out, we were in shock. It took a while to realize that this had really happened. We've had the chance to mourn with our friends, and it's one day at a time, getting through, and but focusing on the good lives that they led, and remember, thinking about what we can learn from them, and that is to live a good life, to be good people, to have faith, and to serve others. She's got a lot ahead of her. She's optimistic and she's strong and she will be fine. But I think that, she's also going to be continually going through the grieving process of losing her family.
Haskell's trial began in August of 2019. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity. Prosecutors argued in their opening statements that the defendant killed the Stay family in revenge for helping his ex-wife Melanie get away from him. The first witness to take the stand was Deputy Constable Sergeant Beck, who testified the scene was surreal. He checked all victims for a pulse. Prosecutors played the audio recording from a device that Deputy Beck was wearing on the scene. The audio revealed a horrific scene of first responders working to assess the crime and assist victims. At the time, only Rebecca and Cassidy had a pulse. During the trial, prosecutors showed gruesome pictures of the victims, the makeshift silencer, and bullets that were used in the crime. The jury also saw images of shell casings found near the victims' bodies. Haskell showed no emotion during the trial. His lawyer said, "He's sedated and he's an individual that's been treated for a severe mental illness," said defense attorney Doug Durham. Texas has an insanity statute, and if this isn't a case where the evidence, a preponderance of the evidence, is going to show severe mental illness, and he couldn't distinguish right from wrong, I don't know what case there is. Prosecutors countered by saying, "The credible evidence will show you that this was not a case about someone who was insane," she continued. That this rather was a plan that was created in anger and fueled by vengeance. The trial brought forth just how terrifying the events were inside the Stay home that fateful day. Prosecutors described how Haskell shot the youngest child, 4-year-old Zach, in the shoulder. The terrified child scurried in the hectic scene to his father on the couch, burying his head into his father's shoulder for protection, but his father was already dead. Haskell followed the boy, pointed the gun to the back of his head and pulled the trigger. The prosecutor said, "How cold and vengeful do you have to be to take the life of a 4-year-old?" Melanie Leon, Haskell's ex-wife, testified in court. She said, "I was so afraid of him, I was so afraid of the abuse. I was almost crippled in that." She told the court they knew each other as children in California, and met again while in college. She said shortly after their marriage he became controlling. He would not allow her to work or make any financial decisions. He isolated her from family, trying to brainwash her into thinking they didn't love her. She said sometimes he would physically abuse her more than once a day. She said he told her if she ever told anyone he would kill her family. She describes how his abuse became so unbearable she had to leave. She said her ex-husband hated her sister Katie the most because she was a champion for truth. He knew if she knew his little secret she wouldn't let me stay in that situation. She said the day she decided to leave for good, she rode her bike to his work and took the car, picked up her children and stayed at a shelter for 5 weeks. She filed for divorce and a protection order. Eventually she decided to leave Utah so she could get assistance from her family. Her sister Katie and one of their brothers drove to Utah to help her make the move. During the move, Haskell called their oldest son, and was screaming into the phone. When he heard that Katie was there, he screamed into the phone, "If she's there helping you and your mom, I will make her pay." Melanie moved in with her mother and father in Texas, just a few miles from Katie's family home. Melanie testified that Haskell was diagnosed with depression, but never had any delusions or hallucinations. She said he did tell her after their separation that he was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Haskell's defense attorney Durham argued that jurors should consider compassion and forgiveness, not hate and anger when making their decision. Prosecutors Lauren Bard told jurors that the issue is not with Haskell's mental illness, but with his personality. She described him as being manipulative, selfish, narcissistic, and a blame-shifting monster. She continued saying Haskell faked symptoms of being mentally ill. Instead he crafted a plan to hurt anybody who helped his ex-wife. She said after the shooting Haskell reloaded his gun and headed to the homes of his ex-wife's parents and brothers so he could complete his vengeful plan, but was arrested before he could carry it completely out. Jurors shed tears when Cassidy Stay testified. Cassidy began by discussing how normal the day started off. She and her siblings had played with their cousins at their grandparents' home, and then after coming home they organized their pantry. Her parents went to the bank, leaving Cassidy in charge of her younger siblings. She told jurors how she begged him not to hurt them. She said while they were waiting for her parents to come home she told him all of the children's names and ages, stressing that Zach was only 4. She said she was hoping to appeal to his humanity. She said she didn't think someone could hurt kids if they knew how old they were. She said her mother urinated on herself when she came home and noticed Haskell was in their home. She went on to describe how her mother and father tried to appease the angry man, but he was unaffected. He forced them all into one room and tied them up. She said they were all like ducks in a row face down on the floor. She told the court how he counted each family member allowed to make sure everyone was in the room before he opened fire. She said her mother jumped up and screamed no, and tried to wrestle the gun away from Haskell but was unsuccessful. Cassidy walked off the stand down to the jury box and showed the jurors the scar on her head and her damaged finger. When the shooting started she covered her head with her hands, and the bullet went through her finger into her skull. She told the court that Haskell was in complete control, and was not led by anyone else. The jury rejected the defense's claim to have him found not guilty by reason of insanity. On September 26 of 2019 Haskell was found guilty of capital murder. On October 11, and after deliberating for only a little more than 4 hours they sentenced him to death. Cassidy Stay gives her victim's impact statement.
Past 5 years, I've always wanted to know how you felt about me and what kind of remorse you felt. And my family always said that you only felt sorry for yourself, and I didn't want to believe that because I thought surely he has to feel bad for killing my family. And when I heard that you felt no remorse, something changed inside of me. And I didn't know what to do with that change, and it was causing me a lot of hurt and anger because that was my closure. My closure was the hope that you would feel bad. I no longer have the desire for any closure because this is it. There's nothing left on this earth that will soothe my wounds and worries. Only God can help me now. And that's what I've decided to do with my resentment and my anger towards you. I'm letting go of my emotions, and I'm giving it to God. Because He'll take care of me, and He'll help me through this. The jury decided that you were going to die by lethal injection, and I respect their decision. Do I think the punishment fits the crime? No. I hope that when you die, you will get the punishment you deserve from God. Only God can help you now. Are you going to feel remorse one day? I don't know. And I want to tell you that I don't care anymore. I'm going to continue to live my life with happiness, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to forget about this, and I'm going to forget about you. You've been in control long enough, and now your game is up. You're not in control anymore. You've lost, and this is it for you. God will be there for you when you need Him, and that time is going to come quickly for you. whether you like it or not.
Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg released a statement not long after the jury reached their verdict. The death penalty is only for the worst of the worst. Haskell meticulously planned and carried out the slaughter of the Stay family, and the death sentence handed down by a jury of his peers is appropriate. Ronald Lee Haskell Jr. is currently at the Allenby-Palenski prison in Texas awaiting his execution date. Haskell's attorneys said he will appeal. A memorial service was held at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Hafer Road Chapel, on July 16 in 2014 for Stephen, Katie, Rebecca, Ryan, Emily, and Zach. The Stay family was laid to rest at the Klein Memorial Park in Tomball, Texas. The Journal of American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law published an article that described the psychology of the revenge killer. In this paper it discusses how vengeful narcissistic rage is born from intolerable feelings of powerlessness and humiliation. The person gets to the point when he or she feels powerless, and the only defense is to avenge. Their ego is threatened in such a devastating way, all that remains is to revenge what he or she feels is injustice. The person gets to the state where they can't think of anything else. Angry thoughts play over and over until it reaches a vicious cycle. The more the person thinks about it, the angrier he or she gets. The person will only feel better if they can provide sustenance to their shattered self-esteem. That sustenance is revenge. The person will only regain their sense of power and control by carrying out and acting on their vengeance. The person feels their intended targets are worthy of their fate. Haskell's continuous abuse of his wife fed his ego. He felt powerful and in control. When she left he lost all his power and control, and he felt injured. Even though Haskell abused his wife, his narcissistic mind could only see the wrongs others did to him. Her family assisted in helping her get away from him. In his mind they were worthy of death. This video's scavenger hunt clue is the letter S like Sierra. Ronald Lee Haskell was an abusive man who couldn't handle his wife leaving him. When he couldn't locate her he concocted a plan to murder the family, whose only crime was helping a family member get away from violence. He was a narcissistic, evil man. Haskell meticulously planned and executed 6 members of one family, and planned to execute the rest of the family. He had no idea that 15-year-old Cassidy would survive. Her bravery led to his quick capture, and saved many lives. Her testimony in court helped seal his fate. He deserves what awaits him. May Stephen, Katie, Rebecca, Brian, Emily and Zach all rest in peace. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for the next volume, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Want to help support the channel you love, and get something in return? Simply purchase some Elizabeth's Chronicles merch. We have coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, cozy blankets, beach towels, phone covers and more. Use the coupon code EC10OFF4U and get 10% off your order. The link to order is in the description area below this video. Thanks for helping Elizabeth's Chronicles continue to make the videos you love.